So much can shift on the outside, yet somehow it all still feels exactly the same. The months pass, the goals shift, the faces in your life rotate like a carousel, but the emotions underneath stay hauntingly familiar. Peace comes and goes, abundance teases, then disappears. Love appears in new forms but echoes the same old ache. You begin to question whether progress is even real, or just an illusion wearing different clothes. The strangest part? You're doing everything right, or so it seems. The visualizations, the affirmations, the effort to think positive. You try to align, to vibrate higher, to trust the unseen. But still, your reality keeps looping, as if you're stuck in a dream where the setting changes, but the script remains the same. Deep inside, you know something isn't adding up. And that's the beginning of waking up. Not because you've failed, but because you're finally seeing the pattern. What if the loop isn't life punishing you, but life mirroring something you haven't yet changed? Not externally, but energetically. What if everything you've tried was never wrong, just incomplete, because the part that needed to shift wasn't your practice, but your frequency? You're about to understand why the loop feels so real, so stubborn, and so familiar, and more importantly, how to step out of it. You felt it, the ache of living the same day with a different name, the sensation that you've already walked this path, already had this conversation, already learned this lesson, yet here it is again. It's as if life is spinning on a silent axis, pulling you back to a familiar emotional landscape, no matter how far you think you've traveled. The introduction pulled back the curtain. Now you begin to see why. The repetition isn't random. The loop isn't chaos. It's coherence. You're not being punished. You're being mirrored. Reality is not responding to your goals. It's responding to your energetic setting. Life doesn't care what you want. It reflects what you are. That's the first key. Not what you say you are, not what you hope to become, but what you embody in the spaces between your effort. The spaces when you're not meditating, not journaling, not visualizing. When you're simply reacting, remembering, resisting, or replaying. Those moments carry a frequency, and that frequency is your true broadcast. The quantum field, the invisible intelligence that arranges this reality, is not impressed by your rituals. It responds to the vibration that runs deepest, the signal you send without speaking, the tone of your being when no one's watching. So why does life feel like a loop? Because most people live new days with old energy. They change jobs, but bring the same self-doubt. They enter new relationships, but carry the same wounds. They move to new places, but bring the same scarcity mindset. On the surface, the scenery shifts, but underneath, the vibration stays fixed. And so the field reflects back what it always has. It's not magic, and it's not mystery. It's resonance. Whatever you hold as true in your nervous system becomes the blueprint reality builds around. Until that blueprint is rewritten, the loop continues. Here's where it gets more precise. Your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, isn't written in your conscious thoughts. It's embedded in the emotions you repeat, the behaviors you justify, and the expectations you rarely challenge. You might affirm abundance, but expect just enough. You might speak worthiness, but shrink in the face of opportunity. These inner contradictions are not lost on the field. They create interference, a mixed signal, and when your signal is mixed, the loop tightens. Life becomes a carousel of almosts and not quites, and you begin to wonder why it never fully shifts. But now you're seeing it. The loop isn't stubborn because the universe is blind. It's stubborn because the frequency hasn't changed. Reality is only doing its job. It's holding up the mirror. So instead of asking, why does nothing ever change? A better question might be, what am I still broadcasting? Because the moment you become aware of that, truly aware, you've already begun to break the loop. The signal is no longer unconscious, and what was once a pattern can now become a choice. This is the beginning of escape, not by running faster, but by finally tuning in. Once you understand that life is mirroring your energetic blueprint, a deeper question arises. If I know what's happening, why can't I just change it? Why, even with clarity and intention, does the loop still grip so tightly? Why does it feel like you're trapped behind glass, seeing what you want, reaching for it, but somehow always slipping back into the same patterns? It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because the part of you that desires change isn't the part that's running the show. Your conscious mind wants expansion, but your subconscious mind wants safety. And safety to the subconscious means familiar, not free. The loop is sustained not just by thought, but by memory. Your nervous system is a library of your past selves, cataloging every fear, every heartbreak, every disappointment. It stores emotional signatures like files, ready to open them the moment something feels even remotely similar. So when you begin to shift, to reach for the unknown, your body sounds the alarm. Not because it's trying to hurt you, but because it's been trained to keep you in range of what it knows. Even if what it knows is suffering, the result? Self-sabotage, procrastination, emotional shutdown, the illusion that you're not ready yet. But readiness was never the problem. Permission was. And here's the paradox. The stronger your desire to evolve, the louder the resistance becomes. Because transformation threatens the very identity your subconscious was built to protect. You're not just trying to change your life, you're disrupting the homeostasis of your entire inner world. That's why old patterns don't fade quietly. They flare up. They reassert themselves with force, not to punish you, but to test your coherence. Will you collapse into the familiar again? Or will you hold your new frequency, even when the old one tries to reclaim its ground? This is why people feel stuck, even while doing the work. Because underneath the conscious practice, the emotional body is still looping the old reality. You can journal about abundance, but if your body still feels like money is unsafe, the loop remains intact. You can speak affirmations of love, but if your nervous system expects betrayal, the field will echo that expectation. Until you bring the subconscious into alignment, not through force, but through awareness, the loop will persist, not as a failure, but as a signal that more of you needs to come online before the shift can stabilize. The escape isn't about doing more, it's about feeling deeper, seeing clearer, and choosing differently, even when the old frequency tries to seduce you back. Now you see it. The loop survives, because the body and subconscious are still vibrating at yesterday's frequency. But knowing isn't always enough to break it. Because right when you're about to rise, right when the shift begins, something strange happens. The old reality fights to return. This is the moment most never recognize for what it is. It doesn't arrive with warnings. It doesn't shout. It sneaks in quietly, disguised as doubt, fatigue, impatience. You feel a subtle urge to settle. A familiar emotion creeps back in, and if you're not paying attention, you fall back into the loop. Not because you're choosing it, but because it feels like home. This moment is sacred. It's not failure. It's the test. The final flare of a frequency losing power. When you are on the edge of change, your subconscious will amplify the old identity, not because you're broken, but because your internal system is destabilizing. And all systems resist destabilization. That resistance shows up in your thoughts. Maybe I should give up. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. But these thoughts aren't truth. They're echoes, vibrational memories trying to reclaim the space they once ruled. This is the loop's final attempt to survive, by convincing you to abandon the shift before it stabilizes. If you collapse in this moment, the pattern wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it's more familiar. That's how it stays alive. Not through force, but through recognition. The subconscious clings to what it knows, even when it hurts. This is where you must become something you've never practiced before, present in the discomfort. Most try to escape it, but escaping discomfort is exactly what feeds the loop. Freedom lives on the other side of staying, breathing, witnessing, choosing differently even while the old frequency is still screaming. Because when you can feel fear and not obey it, when you can notice the pattern and not participate, you begin to create space for something new to emerge. This is the portal out, not a dramatic event, not a magical day, but a quiet choice in a seemingly ordinary moment, to respond from the new instead of react from the old, to pause, breathe, and remember what you're here for. The loop isn't just in your circumstances, it's in your reflexes. And once you interrupt the reflex, the pattern loses power. It can no longer run on autopilot. You've taken the wheel. You've shown the quantum field a new signal. And when that signal stabilizes, reality has no choice but to follow. This is how the escape begins. Not with fireworks, but with awareness. Not with control, but with coherence. Once you've recognized the loop and caught yourself in the moment it tries to pull you back, the next question emerges. How do I move forward without falling again? This is where most get it wrong. They try to push their way out. They double down on effort, grasp for control, demand results. But the loop cannot be escaped through force, because force is still part of the old frequency. It's still rooted in urgency, fear, and scarcity. Real change, the kind that rewrites your reality from the inside out, doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from tuning differently. You don't overpower the loop, you out-vibrate it. Resonance is the key. You must become emotionally compatible with the version of yourself who already lives outside the loop. Not in theory, but in biology, in nervous system, in breath. That means teaching your body what peace feels like before peace arrives, feeling worthy before the world validates you, grounding into abundance when the bank account still whispers otherwise. This isn't pretending, it's preparation. It's creating a frequency so coherent, so stable, that the old one can no longer survive in your field. 5 seconds of alignment will do more than 5 hours of panic. When your signal shifts from fear to truth, the field responds, not with speed, but with precision. You don't need to wait for your life to change before you change your vibration. That's the loop's greatest illusion. That evidence must come first. But the evidence is always delayed. The field moves after your frequency does. So instead of asking, "Where is my breakthrough?" begin asking, "What signal am I broadcasting?" Let your emotions be the tuning fork. Let your breath be the bridge. And when doubt returns, meet it with softness, not struggle. You are not here to force a new reality into place. You are here to become the resonance that makes the old one impossible to sustain. This isn't about one big breakthrough. It's about 1,000 small choices. Transformation is subtle. It lives in the moments you choose not to spiral. In the breath you take instead of the panic you feed. In the way you soften when life tempts you to harden. In the moments you say, "Even if nothing looks different yet, I will hold the frequency anyway." Each of these moments sends a message to the field. I am ready, not in desperation, not in performance, but in truth. Because you're no longer chasing the future, you're embodying the frequency of it now. The shift deepens when you stop waiting for reality to confirm who you are. You confirm it first, and then reality follows, not always quickly, not always loudly, but with unfailing consistency. This is how the loop ends, not by fixing your life, but by dissolving the version of you who needed to be fixed. When you no longer identify with the pattern no longer has a place to land. The echo fades, the mirror clears, and what reflects back is not a loop, but a life that feels alive. If life has felt like a loop, it's because something inside you has been echoing the same signal, and life, in its perfection, has simply been responding, not to punish, to reveal, to wake you up. And now that you see it, you can shift it, not with more doing, but with deeper being. You're not here to fight for your future. You're here to remember it, to walk as the frequency of what you've already become, to end the loop not by trying harder, but by no longer being the version of you that created it. And when you do that, everything changes.